Hi, everybody. Dan Illman, Mike Beer, the DRF race of the day for Saturday, February the 18th. Race number 9 at Oaklawn Park. It's a really good race. The Grade 3 $600,000 Razorback. Full field of older horses going 1.16 miles at Oaklawn Park. You can play this race with your DRF Bets account. Nice deal for new DRF Bets members. A $250 deposit match plus a $10 free bet and free daily racing form past performances. Join now at DRF Bets. Let's take a look at the field for the Razorback. Some really good older horses in here. West Will Power was second as the favorite in the Grade 1 Clark in his final start of 2022. He'll make his 6-year-old debut for the red-hot Brad Cox barn.
Yep, he's going to take money in this race. Daddy almost has to. Coming into this race off of 2 triple-digit buyers in his last 2 races. His form overall is really good. He's one of the ones in here, but this is a race where I feel like you can get beyond the favorites if you really wanted to, and the pace is going to be key. I feel like this pace could get fast.
I agree wholeheartedly, and so does Timeform US. We throw up the Timeform US pace projector. You know the pace is going to be fast. If Timeform US believes that West Will Power, a horse that's been on the lead in his last 3 races, is going to be sitting 4th or 5th after the opening quarter or half mile. Now, Ginobili is a fast horse. Went gate to wire at Oaklawn last time out, but as the distances increase, I start getting a little bit more worried about Ginobili. He is in excellent form.
Yeah, I agree. The longer they go, I feel like the less confidence maybe you can have in him. That doesn't mean he's not a really nice horse, because he is. And I really did like his 5th season last time, Dan. Second off the layoff, it was only a mile, but they used his speed in there to get up close to the pace, and he just kept going.
The number 1 in this race is 20-1 on the morning line. He's a millionaire. Long range Toddy. And talk about a long time between Toddies. The last time long range Toddy won a race was a division of the Rebel in 2019. So it's coming on 4 years now for long range Toddy. He's stretching out in distance, and I'm still trying to exactly figure out what's his best distance. Is he a 7/8 of a mile horse? Is he a middle distance horse? I'm not sure at this stage of his career he's a graded stakes horse, but maybe he gets a setup.
Yeah, it kind of feels like the distance doesn't really matter for long-range Toddy. He was good going longer earlier in his career. They've concentrated on sprinting with him for most of the last 2 years or so, and he's run fine in some of those starts. Almost pulled off an upset in the Phoenix last October. But overall, his form just leaves a little to be desired, and I think you have to be really concerned about him stretching back out here.
The number 2, Law Professor, comes into this race off a dominant performance in the Queens County at Aqueduct as the favorite, going 1.125 miles over a wet track. We take a look at this race, and Manny Franco, who is riding Law Professor this day, Jose Ortiz has the mount on Saturday, found a really good spot, tracking the pace 3 wide. And as they say at Champions, Mike, good night, Irene.
Yeah, he just cruised in this race. You could tell Law Professor was going to win this thing from a very long way out, Dan, and he just runs away. Is this a weaker field than the one he's facing on Saturday? It is, but Law Professor has more than held his own against good horses in the past, so I don't feel like this is a step up in class that he can't handle, and he might just have the right running style. Not only is he in great form, but he might just have the right running style for this race.
Yeah, he has that tactical speed where he can adapt to any sort of pace scenario and work out his trip. Ever since Actress took him over, Law Professor, who was always a useful horse, has really seemed to find himself. He gave Life is Good a very brief scare in the Woodward 3 starts back. He was far from embarrassed in the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile, and you saw that performance in the Queens County. Rated R Superstar is a horse that's going to be a local favorite at Oaklawn Park. He's earned almost $2 million in his career. He's 10 years old, and best of all, he's a late runner that is licking his chops at the possibility of a hot pace up front.
Yeah, I mean, I don't there's probably not a horse in this field, Dan, that benefits more than Rated R Superstar if this pace gets fast. He just wants to sit back usually and make one run. That is what he did in the 5th season last time. And it's not like that pace was slow, Dan, but Ginobili was up front, didn't really come back for him. And this horse put in his typical late run after coming very wide to the stretch in that race. He just keeps showing up, running good races, and I think he's a contender right back.
And he's going to be a price. And despite being the elder statesman of this field, he can still step. He's hit the board in his last 3 races on dirt, 2 of them stakes, and of course last time out a rallying third behind that front-running winner in the 5th season. And that front-running winner, Ginobili. We're going to take a look at the fifth season right now. He went off as the favorite in this race, making his second start for trainer Peter Miller. He got right up close to the pace, and he just took this race over on the second turn and gave nobody else a chance. This is a horse that's always had ability. He was second in the 2021 Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. A day that life is good just seemed unbeatable on the track. He's had his share of physical issues, but he's good right now.
Yeah, I just like his last race, Dan. He's a good horse anyway, and I just really like the little bit of a step forward that he took in that most recent fifth season that we just watched. He did get, to me, a perfect trip in that race. I liked that they set him up close, though. He sat off a 50-1 shot up the backstretch and then won really easily. In some ways, I know he's not the morning line favorite. In some ways, I kind of think he's the horse to beat in the air.
Ginobili's going to try to stretch out to 1 mile and a 16th for the first time in his career. That last race was his first victory around 2 turns. We'll see how far he has to go, especially if he has to go a little bit quicker in the early stages. Trademark is the number 5. Trainer Vicky Oliver treated him like a very nice horse as a 3-year-old. Ran him in the Sam F. Davis, ran him in the Tampa Bay Derby, ran him in the Pat Day Mile. Stakes race after stakes race. Might have been too tough. Got good towards the end of last year with a little bit of a class drop. I think was certainly helped that the Commonwealth turf was washed off of the turf, but got up close to a solid pace and beat a weak group. He's gotten better as the distances have gotten longer.
Yeah, that's true. I just kind of like the way he's starting to develop now, Dan. This is a horse who won his final 2 starts as a 2-year-old when they stretched him out. And I wasn't like blown away by him. I thought he had soft trips in both of those races, but he still, won fairly impressively. And he never really took that big step forward as a 3-year-old. But I thought he started to do it in his last couple of starts. I know it was off the turf last time, but he won that race pretty handily. And his win 2 starts back at Keeneland, I thought he ran really well that day. And he did it by sitting off the pace, which is key for him. He's a horse he can be a bit headstrong, but if he can get the right trip here, I think he can get a piece of this at a price.
West Will Power has earned triple-digit Beyer speed figures in his last 2 starts. In the Fayette at Keeneland, he shook loose on the lead and sprinted on home en route to a career-best 102 Beyer speed figure. Last time out in the Clark, I thought he set a pretty rated pace, and he was run down by Proxy while looking a little bit tired and flopping back to his left lead inside the 16th pole. I think you could make the argument that Proxy would be favored in this race. West Will Power figures. I'm not sure if he has such an edge, though, that I want to take a short price.
Yeah, I feel the same way about him. I mean, I won't be surprised when he shows up and runs well again, because that's kind of all he's done throughout most of his career. But we're still talking about the 2 best races of his life in the last 2 starts. The Fayette, which, they just allowed him to control there. There were only 4 other horses in that field. He was the lone speed. He took no pressure. He won easily. And listen, his Clark was fine last time. That's not my favorite performance of his. I didn't think he had a big excuse there. I don't think it's a very strong race overall. And to me, this pace is just going to be way tougher for him. I know that he can win. I'm betting somebody else.
Here's another millionaire. The number 7, Last Samurai, ran better than expected for Mr. Lucas, went 4th in the Rich Pegasus World Cup, although no threat to the winner. His prior performance, the Tinsel at Oaklawn at 1 mile and an 1/8, was a solid enough effort, but he was beaten that day by Bal Harbor, a horse who usually finds 1 or 2 better. He's a closer that's going to get the right setup, Mike, and once in a while, he pops a pretty big race, and he seems like he's in good form.
Yeah, he likes this track too. The biggest win of his career came here last April, but that was a day when he was able to get up on the pace, and that's not going to happen here. He's just one of those horses who's really grindy. I feel like if he pulls the right trip and can be clear with time, he can sort of, keep coming on at the end and maybe get a piece of this. I couldn't talk myself into him on top.
The number 8, Hero Status, is a very lightly raced 4-year-old with a ton of upside potential, but he's going to get a class and pace quiz, stepping up into the stakes ranks for the first time. Now, he's won 3 of his last 4 starts for trainer Mark Glad out in Southern California, including this second-level allowance over a wet track. He got up close to the pace. The pace looked really solid. 22-2, 45 and change. Didn't bother Hero Status. He draws off to win as much the best. Was it the wet track that maybe moved him forward? Maybe. I think he's just getting good right now.
Yeah, I agree with you. I feel like he just took a little bit of a step forward. This is, at the end of the day, it's a pretty easy win. Certainly the best race he's ever run. I don't know what kind of trip he's going to be able to get in this race, Dan. There's obviously a lot working against him as he steps way up and ships across the country, but I won't knock his current form.
Trainer Michael Maker took over the conditioning of the 9 Keystone Field last spring, turned him into a claiming crown jewel winner 3 starts back, then turned him into a triple-digit buyer winner in this race at Oaklawn. Second level allowance back on January the 7th. And Keystone Field, another horse with a versatile running style, set a pretty good trip in this race, but once he makes the lead, it is over.
Yeah, he did just get a perfect trip in this race. He's going to, sort of run away from this horse that was on the pace with him at the end. And you can see behind these two, Dan, there's not a lot happening in here. It makes me wonder how strong this field was. I know the race came back fast. His recent form is obviously very good for a super dangerous trainer. I just felt like he was in probably a little bit too tough here.
Completing the field is the number 10, Caddo River, who won the 2021 edition of the Smarty Jones and was second in the Arkansas Derby, both at Oaklawn. Since then, he's been an okay sort of high-level allowance horse that may not have panned out in the stakes ranks. First time Mr. Lucas after this race for Brad Cox earlier in the meet, a race in which he's odds on again. He's now been the beaten favorite in his last 2 races, and he just doesn't have a lot of pop in the stretch.
Yeah, he doesn't. He has a real look at this race too, Dan. He's just sort of forging up here with a real chance to win here, and he's just not going to quite find enough to get the job done. A little bit of a step in the wrong direction for him, but it was second off the layoff. Now he's third off the layoff, so maybe that will lead to one of his better performances. He's another horse, though, that likes to be forward in his races from post 10 with speed to his inside. I feel like there's a lot working against him here.
Before we get to our top selections, please click the subscribe button on the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel for the latest DRF videos. Top pick time for the Razorback, the Saturday race of the day, and I've been taken with how Law Professor has been running in his last few races. The Queens County was a weaker race from a class standpoint. He beat a couple of minor next out winners in that race, and he beat them very easily.
Yeah, I just kind of preferred him, Dan. I had questions about the 2 favorites on the morning line. Not that I don't think they're good horses. I just had enough questions not to want to take them. It felt like Law Professor could be in the right spot here at a relatively fair price, and I'm going to use the 3 and the 5 with him.
Mike's going 2, 5, 3, and 4. I'm going to try to get maybe Last Samurai into the number at a price, the number 7. But I'm with Mike. I like Law Professor in here, especially at his morning line odds. I went 2, 6, 7, 9 for the Saturday DRF race of the day. Good luck.